Hello and welcome back to the another episode of Daily News Quiz Analysis for IAS Prelims 2025. It is 23rd April today, and in this video we are going to solve some important questions which could be very much relevant for your preparation. But before we will start our discussion, I would like to express what is in my heart and how it is shattered from the news which came from the Jammu and Kashmir. You know, you need to be human to understand this pain. Whether you belong to any country, you belong to any religion, you belong to any faith, you belong to any culture, you just need to be human to understand the pain, to understand this act, how it has shattered our hearts. The terrorist act in Jammu and Kashmir, how innocent people were killed there. Sometimes I ask to myself that how a human being can do this act. How can a human being open fire on unarmed people? How heinous he should be. How, you know, what is their mentality? How degraded their mentality is. If you are going to open the fire on the innocent people, you are not a human at all. So this act of terrorism which happened in Jammu and Kashmir had shattered our hearts in our country. This is kind of a black day for everybody in our country. And we send our condolences to the people, to the families of the people who died in this incident, who died in this massacre. And also we pray for the well-being of the people who had got injured in this incident. To be honest, my heart did not allow me to take this class today, but as you are the aspirants, you are aspiring to be UPSC officers, you are aspiring to be IAS officer, you are aspiring to be IPS officer. And for that, you have to go through every hardship. You have to carry the load of every hardship on your shoulders, and you have to move on. You have to move on, you have to learn from these things, how you can make this country better, how you can make this you can make the living in this country better, and what should be your approach diplomatically, what should be your approach with the society, how can you sanitize the mentality of the people. You need to understand all this stuff when you are studying, when you are aspiring to be the UPSC aspirants, when you are aspiring to be IAS officers. So this is the time for you analyze. I know our hearts, they are burning right now. We want the revenge for this act. We want the wrath should be, we want those people who had done this act, they should face the wrath of our country, they should face the wrath of our army. But at the same time, we need to understand, there should be the better understanding between the people. This act is not against any particular community. This act is against the humanity. We need to understand that. And at the same time, we have to move on. We have to learn from these mistakes. We have to understand, we have to bring in this understanding that how we can make our country better, how we can enable in our country the harmonious living, how we can cooperate with our people, and what can be the solutions to such problems. Once again, I would like to give my condolences to the people who died in this incident, in this terrible terrorist act. My condolences goes to those people, to their families, and we pray for the healthy being of those people who got injured in this incident. And we also demand justice for those people through our army. We need as direct action against those people who had done this act. So with this, with this sadness in our heart, as I told you that it is time for us to understand the condition of our country, we have to enable the harmonious living. So what should be our approach in such incidences? We have to understand that, as you are going to be the pillars of our country. So you need to understand what should be your approach, how you should tackle such situations, what kind of pressure you can put on the countries who are prime suspects of such acts. You need to have this understanding. So that is the prime time, that is the prime motivation for you guys to generalize your thinking, towards your preparation, to analyze these situations, and to sanitize and try to sanitize the society around you. So with this, today we are not going to touch in detail what had happened in the news, as we know how disheartened it was. We will just continue with the questions here. We'll answer these questions. We'll develop our question bank through these questions, and we will conclude our discussion. So with this, let's have a look at the first question which we had brought here. The question says, consider the northern sea route in the Arctic. Which of the following statements are correct regarding its geopolitical and geographical context? Why we had brought this question here? Because there was a news article in the newspaper which talked about how India can harvest, how India can harvest, or what is India's potential in the Arctic region. Right now, if we will see, globe is warming at highest rates. Global warming is happening because of the emissions we are emitting from automobile industry, from other industries, from the construction industries, whatever it would be. We are emitting lots of greenhouse gases, and it eventually leads to global warming. But as it is said that few things are blessings in disguise. And so is the case with the Arctic region. Because of this global warming, there is melting of the snow in the region, and because of this melting of the snow, new routes had been established which are coming into effect, and from those such routes, the northern sea route is one, and which is very much in the exclusive economic zone of Russia, and it is said that it can be the alternative to the Panama Canal. So in this discussion which was in the newspaper today, there was discussion how India can harvest this route, how India can harvest the Arctic region, even though we have the research center there, namely Himadri. How we can harvest it, because we know that this region is not particular to only this northern sea route, but also there are huge materials, huge critical materials would be there, which can be harvested by the countries, and we can the technological race which is currently going on, we can get benefited from this. But in this discussion, even though the northern sea route was one of the criteria, was one of the point of discussion, the materials in this particular region was the another discussion, but the primary question was how India can balance the countries which had huge influence in this region. Balancing, how India can do this balancing. There is huge influence of Russia and US and also China. So the real question was how India can balance Russia and US in this region, even though if India will go for this northern sea route, we know how our relationship with Russia has been, but at the same time we cannot afford USA to go against us. So it is the prime time for India to analyze in this issue, to find out the solution in which they can balance both the countries, and at the same time harvest as much benefits as they could. So this was the whole crux of the article. Now with this, let's solve the question and get to know more about the northern sea route. Here the question says, consider the northern sea route in the Arctic. Which of the following statements are correct regarding its geopolitical and geographic context? First statement: the entire length of the northern sea route lies within the exclusive economic zone of the Russian Federation. Even though most of the times you would have even heard it from me, whenever you will see the extreme statements, like here we can see the entire length, it seems the extreme statement. Most of the times such statements are incorrect. But here with respect to northern sea route, it is exactly true. So first statement is 100% correct. Nothing wrong with this statement. So second statement, it says the NCR provides the shortest maritime route between Europe and East Asia, traversing primarily along Russia's northern coastline bordering the Arctic Ocean. 100% correct. Nothing wrong with the statement. True. So second statement is also correct. As I told you that this NSR, it is believed to be the alternative to what? Alternative to the Panama Canal. Third statement, it says significant port infrastructure along the NSR is jointly administered by the Russia and several other Arctic Council nations to facilitate international shipping. No, it is not. There is no joint administration between Russia and other Arctic Council nations. So third statement is incorrect. So with respect to this question, the correct statements would be statement 1 and statement 2 only. And from the code given below, the correct code would be option A. With this, I hope you had understood the question as well as the context of the question, why we discussed this here. Now with this, let's move to the another slide and see what question we had brought there. Well, here the question is about the Indian economy. What kind of question is this? The question is talking about the impact of monsoon, on what? On food and vegetable prices. Why it is in news? Because IMD, it has highlighted that in this year, in this year food prices may remain low. In this year the food prices may remain low because the monsoon is going to be above normal. The monsoon is going to be above normal according to IMD predictions. If IMD predictions go well, so what can be the answer to this? How this monsoon is going to impact the vegetable and food prices? That it will cool down the vegetable and food price inflation. The inflation in vegetable and fruit prices, that will go down. So this is the prediction of IMD, that this year the monsoon would be above normal. So with this, we need to understand here what is the impact of, through this question we will try to understand what is the impact of the monsoon. If monsoon is consistent, what is its impact on the food prices? Is monsoon solely responsible for the food production, food prices, or there are other things also which impact the inflation in the food and vegetable prices? That we will understand through this question. Here the question says, consider the Indian economy. Which of the following statements best describes the typical relationship between the monsoon season and food price inflation? First statement, a strong and consistent monsoon invariably, so here is the catch, invariably leads to a decrease in food price inflation due to bumper harvest and increased supply. This is exactly, if you will look at the statement, and if you would had just studied, have the basic knowledge about the monsoon and the Indian agriculture, most of the students will mark this statement correct. But here you have to note down this statement, this word invariably makes the change. Even though if there is monsoon, it is strong and consistent, it will definitely have impact on the food price inflation. But is it solely responsible? There are other variable factors too. For example, what is the transportation, how the transportation is working, what is the consumption demand? That also raises the question, what is the consumption demand from the people? What is the rate of the diesel and petrol? That also impacts the food inflation. So there are various other aspects. Indeed, the monsoon is the primary reason, is one of the reason, but it does not invariably lead to decrease in food prices, because there are other also aspects which can impact it. So first statement, even though it looks correct, even though ideally it should be correct, but it is not. So first statement is incorrect. Now moving to the second statement, it says the impact of the monsoon on food price inflation is limited, as India's agriculture sector has become largely independent of rainfall due to advancements in irrigation technology. This is, this also seems correct. That is the beauty of UPSC examiner. They will give you questions that you will feel every statement is correct. But that's why I always tell you, you have to read by the lines. Even though the impact of the monsoon on food price inflation is limited, if we look at the statement, even though we are moving towards the irrigation technology, advancement in irrigation technologies is in our country, but still there is vast regions in our country who are very much dependent on monsoon. The impact, it is, monsoon is not the sole reason for the inflation in the food prices, but it does impact the inflation. If there is no monsoon, it will definitely impact the inflation because there would be no food production. So definitely second statement is also correct. You need to have this balanced approach towards the questions. You need to have this balanced understanding towards the questions. Now the third statement, it says a deficient or erratic monsoon often leads to an increase in food price inflation due to reduced agriculture output and supply disruptions. This is the exact relationship between the two. Look at the wordings used. It does not say will definitely lead. It says it often leads to. Definitely it is a neutral statement to an increase in food. If there is erratic monsoon or deficient monsoon, the statement says often leads to an increase in food price, and it is true. It is 100% true because the production would be less. There would be supply disruptions. Definitely we are very much dependent on monsoon. Our agriculture is very much dependent on monsoon, but it is not only dependent on monsoon. So these things you have to have the understandings of all these things. So third statement is exactly the answer to this question. So with this question, I hope you had understood the context of the question as well as the what is the answer to this question. It is option C. With this, let's move to the another slide and see what question we had brought there. Well, here the question is about the main question. What should have been is about the man-animal conflict. As it was highlighted in today's newspaper. So what is the situation? What is the context of this question? Basically in Madhya Pradesh, if we will see, and this is the answer to this question, so we will discuss it later. In Madhya Pradesh, we had seen there is definitely increase in the big cats. The population of big cats are increasing. When the population of big cats are increasing, what does it show? Their habitat will increase. Their habitat will increase. So definitely there would be more man-animal conflicts. There will be more man-animal conflicts. So to avoid such man-animal conflicts, what the governments are doing, they are trying to develop this buffer zone. They are trying to install this buffer zone, and they are in the region where where we are not allowed to enter such zones, where there are chances that these wild animals will be there and there can be this conflict. They can attack us. So this buffers, they are trying to develop the buffer zone, and they are going to do the fencing of it, which would be chain link fencing in the Madhya Pradesh. So that's why we are discussing this question, because the population has increased, the population of big cats has increased, and it could lead to the man-animal conflict. And we had seen the increased incidents of the man-animal conflict in this region. So how government is trying to intervene in this issue? They are trying to develop these buffer zones so that people will not enter in such regions, and we can avoid such conflicts. So that is the whole context of the question. Now let's solve the question here. Question says, consider the population estimates from the All India Tiger Estimation 2022. Based on these trends and available information, which of the following Indian states is most likely to have the highest number of tigers, Panthera tigris, in 2025? It is definitely Madhya Pradesh. So the correct answer to this question is option C. So with this, let's move to the another slide and see what question we had brought there. Well, the question is about the National Environment Engineering Research Institute. Why it is in news? Because the Supreme Court had told NERI, which is National Environment Engineering Research Institute, to study impact of industrial units on Taj Mahal, to study the impact of industrial units on Taj Mahal, how it is getting polluted because of those industrial activities in the region. So that's why this institute is in the news. It is a constituent laboratory of the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, CSIR, and it was established in Nagpur in the year 1958. Established in year 1958, please do remember that, in Nagpur. So let's solve the question. What does the question say? The question says, the NERI, a constituent laboratory of the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, is primarily focused on, what is its focus? First, promoting renewable energy technologies and their widespread adoption across India. No. Second, conducting research and providing solutions to environmental pollutions and related issues, 100% correct. This is the correct answer to this question. So with this, I hope you had understood the context as well as the question here. With this, our discussion with respect to the questions from the current affairs is over. Now let's move to the another part where we will solve questions from the static portion. You know, as currently we are discussing the motions, so today's discussion would revolve around the subsidiary motion. So let's try to understand this motion through this question. Question says, a subsidiary motion in parliamentary procedure is best described as a motion that is, first statement, introduced at the very beginning of a parliamentary session. No, this is totally incorrect. It is very much, it can't be independent. It depends on another motion. So first statement is incorrect. Second statement, independent of any other motion being discussed. This is also correct. Second statement is also correct. Third statement, related to and dependent upon another motion already before the House, 100% correct. It seeks to delay the procedure. It may seek to amend the motion, and it may seek to delay the procedure, delay the discussion of the motion. So with respect to the subsidiary motion, the correct statement here would be statement C. That would be the correct answer. With this, let's move to the another slide and solve the question from the previous year question book. Let's see what question we had brought today. Here the question says, match the following. In the first column we have the climatic conditions, and in the second column we have the reasons for that. This question was asked in the year 1997. So let's see what was the question. As I had already told you, with respect to geography, the examiner does not have much choice, you know, because it is very much limited, and there are least researches going on, and researches are going on, but least researches which had brought any new development. It is very hard to get in with respect to geography. So that's why there are there are very much limitations on the examiners to ask the questions, you know, whatever they had asked since then. Majorly they have to repeat such questions. So, and that is also the trend of UPSC. They will often repeat the questions. So with this, let's try to understand this question and know what is the reason for that. You know, if you would have followed me, you would definitely know that whenever such questions do come in our discussion, I try my best to mark such questions correctly to avoid any confusion. So let us see what is the climatic condition here. The first statement says Madras is warmer than Kolkata. What is the reason for that? It is the latitude. If we look at the latitudes of Madras and Kolkata, they are very much different. You know, Madras is warmer than Kolkata. Madras lies 13.08 north latitude, which is much nearer to equator than the Kolkata, which is 22 degree 56 north, which is Kolkata is a little bit farther than the equator than the Madras. So definitely it is the latitude which plays here the part. That's why the Madras is warmer. Both the Madras, Chennai or the Kolkata, they are on the banks of the sea. They are the coastal cities, but still the temperature in Madras, it is warmer than Kolkata. Second statement, it says snowfall in Himalaya. What is the reason for that? Definitely it is altitude. Third statement, rainfall decreases from West Bengal to Punjab. The reason for that is the distance from the sea. In West Bengal, it is much nearer to the sea, and definitely the temperature difference is different. There often we will see rainfall on the coastal states, and if we look at the Punjab, it is much farther than the sea, so definitely the rainfall in the Punjab is lesser as compared to West Bengal. So third statement is distance from the sea. Fourth statement, Satluj Ganga plains get same rain in winter because of the western depressions. So with respect to this question, all the four statements are matched correctly. With this, I hope you had understood the questions here and also the context of the questions. With this, I would like to conclude our discussion here. I would like to thank you guys for staying with me. Thank you very much and have a nice day.